Right now we're going to show you how to repair an AC assembly and the necessary procedure step by step. Normally this is what you'd see on an automobile, truck, but the process is the same. On a typical hose like this, first we determine if we can actually reuse the fittings. In this case we can. So we determined that this is a number 8 aluminum hose assembly. And this one, as you can see, has been rubbed by a pulley. So first step, we're going to make our orientation marks, because you're going to want to cut these ends off of each side. So we're going to make a mark here. You make your other mark here. These are your repair fittings. We're actually going to weld these on the existing tubes and just replace the hose in the center. First step, I'm going to cut off the old fitting. Safety glasses. Hacksaw, tubing cutter, whatever works best for you. All right, at this point, in this case, this hose has an O-ring and a flange seal, which we're going to take off, because when we go to weld, you want to remove any kind of rubber O-rings that can't be replaced. So we're removing any old gasket material O-ring. Let's set those aside. All right, as you can see, after you've cut the old fittings off, you've got a lot of burrs, and we need to clean this up. You can use something like Scotch-Brite, even rough sandpaper, but in most cases you'll need a bench grinder with a wire wheel works best. So at this point, we want to go ahead and clean these fittings up in preparation for brazing. I'll step over here. Now, if you have a wire wheel, you want to carefully do this, because aluminum is very soft. It can be easily ruined if you're not careful. Again, using the wire buffer just gets most of the slag, and it gets the metal where we can do a better braze job on it. Scotch-Brite works well in cleaning up the part you're going to braze. What you want to do is get your tube as clean and dry as possible. That's where your brake parts cleaner comes in handy. For this case, we're just going to spray this cleaner in the fitting to ensure that we get all the refrigerant and any kind of grime, grease, or dirt out of there. And we'll do this. Pay attention not to lose your orientation marks, because you're going to need that when you go to recrimp your new fittings. If you have access to shop air, now's a good time to go ahead and take compressed air, blow that out to make sure we get all the debris out of the tube. All right. All right. Next step, we're going to braze. This is your AC weld-on repair sleeve. These fittings are supplied with an expansion hole on the side, which also serves as a marker. In case we burn our mark off accidentally, this will still be there to serve as orientation. All right, now we're ready to braze. We'll lock that down in a vise, not real tight, just enough to secure it. Actually, we'll bring it up just a little bit. As you can see, we've still got our mark lined up. Now you're ready to braze. You can use standard propane for this, but we found out that MAP works a lot better because it burns a little hotter. For aluminum, again, the trick is to get it clean and not overheat the metal because it is easy to burn. So we'll start out with a moderate to low flame. Then we'll slowly begin to heat up the fitting. You want to work your torch around the fitting to displace the heat evenly. And you have to remember, if you're doing this on a customer's fitting and you don't have these in stock, if you ruin them, that's not a good thing. So you've got to be really careful. The whole key is to work the rod smoothly around the fitting. You'll notice that when it gets to a certain temperature, the flux and the solder flow, making a nice even pattern. We'll let that cool for about 30 seconds. Take our pliers, then we're going to cool the fitting down by putting it in water. Give that just a few more seconds. Be careful when you dunk these fittings in the water or cool them off because the heat causes the steam to expand. All right. Now we start with the other one. Just another note, on some vehicles, especially imports, the tubing that they use is metric. This one we're using happens to be standard. We've seen cases where the tubing is actually smaller than the repair sleeve. In that case, your lifesaver will need to be tapped down. In other words, you need to form fit it to fit the tube. It should fit in snug and not loose. Any large gaps or any unevenness causes the flux and the solder to run uneven and makes for a bad job. So again, we check our marks, make sure we're lined up. and we start again. Let that cool for a few seconds. All right. All right, next step. You want to clean up all the slag and the flux left over because the flux is corrosive. So if you don't have access to a wire wheel, Scotch-Brite pad works really well. In this case, we're going to demonstrate one side using the wire wheel to clean it up. All right, well, our weld looks good, no gaps, no holes, and the braze is spread out evenly. I got a nice weld. Next step, time permitting, you can take a little bit of Scotch-Brite pad and just finish cleaning up any grime or grease. Makes the completed hose assembly look a little bit more professional. And we'll do the same with this one. We found that the Scotch-Brite pack works exceptionally well because it kind of, after you're done brazing, it kind of blends in the rest of the tube and gives it a better finished look. All right. Now we have two repaired ends. Okay, your next step is we're going to have to get our cutoff length for our hose assembly. All right, now we have our two rebrazed fittings. Now, we're going to measure the old damaged hose to get our appropriate cutoff length. The easiest way we've found is to actually take one end of the completed fitting and we're going to insert a new piece of hose in there. Just firmly push it in until it seats. Now, you'll want to determine your cutoff length. You can see by the old hose where we actually cut off. And this is where we have brazed into the new fitting. So if you'll just want to kind of line that up to get a good reference point to where you cut it off. Typically on air conditioning hose, when you crimp them, you need to allow about 1/4 of an inch growth on each end. Now that varies from crimper to crimper, but on the crimper that we use, it's usually spot on to say you've got 1/4 inch of growth. So being the case, we're going to allow for that by going a little longer on the hose. Basically hold one end down and you'll bring your new end over here and do the same. You can see right there where we cut it off and add, or subtract I should say, 1/4 inch. Now at that point, you'll take a marker, in this case we'll use a grease pencil, and mark where your hose is going to stop on your new repair. The mark is where we're going to cut. Insert fitting into hose. Now this part is critical. We started off the old hose by getting our orientation marks. Well, we've got them here again too. As you can see, one dot lined up with the other dot. Now we're ready to crimp. All right, we've got our new hose and our new ends and we're ready to crimp. We'll just step over here and get the crimper. All right, as you can see, the crimper does sizes 6 up through 12 in standard and reduced barrier. This particular hose is a standard number 8, so we're going to get our crimper out. Then we're going to determine the appropriate die we need. For this hose, we'll need a number 8 die, so all right. All right. Get the hose about right there. Tighten up our handle. Hand tight. Close the valve. All right, then we crimp. This particular crimper works really well. You'll know you're done crimping with this one because the pump has an automatic shut off. You'll pump the handle till it stops. And when it doesn't go any further, you'll know you're done with the crimp. Release the plunger, relieves pressure. Unscrew the pump, pull the lock ring out. Now we have a finished crimp. All right, that one looks good. Now, before we crimp the second one, we want to make sure that we still have the right orientation. And we do. Our dots are still lined up. Put it back in. We'll lock it down, hand tight. Valve close and crimp. All right, our hose is crimped. Compressed air, make sure you've got all the debris material blown out of it. Give it a good wipe down. At this point, you're going to replace any O-rings or seals that you took off to start with. Now we have a completed hose assembly. We've gone from start to finish. We've cut, brazed the ends, and we've actually checked our orientation. That's correct. And then we did the final crimp. Now we have a finished product. With a little bit of practice, you can do these too.